Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We're broadcasting from the Hesselson studio, and joining me in the studio this morning, Senator Tom O'Mara. Tom, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Frank. It's great to be with you.
Well, I really do appreciate you being on the show because there's so much going on. I'm surprised you found the time. I don't even know where to begin, but I've got to say, and we've heard from so many viewers, you did such a great job at the Albany rally for the COs.
Yeah, well, see, this is an untenable situation that's been brewing for years. Something that I've been outspoken on for years. It's really, this particular is because really the HALT Act and the prisons, but this all is a culmination of the beginning with the defund the police movements, with one-party control in Albany that followed the 2018 elections when we Republicans lost the Senate majority in Albany. And the very next year, it came out with bail reform, no bail, discovery, all these other things that have gone on. And then, 2 years after that was the HALT Act that got put into place. And we've just had a complete lack of discipline.
Check one. Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. I'm so glad that you've joined us this morning. A little bit later on, we're going to be talking with Senator Tom O'Mara. And in full disclosure, the interview was taped late yesterday afternoon due to a scheduling issue here. So we will be talking with the senator. Oh, we did already. But so some of the information on the corrections officer strike is a little out of date, but the overall position remains very truthful, very honest. So I wanted to highlight that, but we talk about many other issues as well. So just wanted to give you an update on that. We're going to go to viewer comments here to start off the program, and a lot of updates. But speaking with the senator, we have about a half an hour interview, so get your comments in now. First off, coming in after yesterday's program, oh, hey, here's a nice comment. How about this comment? We'll start with this one. Good morning, Frankly Speaking. Well, good morning to you. Here's a comment from a viewer yesterday. You know, Frank, this is very serious. The fact that the Democrats refused to clap, even for things that were said that encompassed their own agenda and interests, and later began walking out before the president even finished his speech, not to mention, yes, we'll say the representative from Texas, Al Green, who like a child interrupted the speech and had to be removed from the chamber. He was censured yesterday. We're going to talk about that vote at one point during the program. It is indicative of just how unwilling the Democrats are to work out their differences for the betterment of our country. I'm not saying that all of them are this way, but the vast majority of them need to go, and I am in hopes that they will be voted out. This includes people like Hochul, too. We're going to talk about Hochul a little bit later on. But, yes, there There is some pushback now. As we had mentioned in the past, there was an article, and I thought it was a really good article, that had stated that there are two Democrats today. There's the Fetterman Party and there's the AOC Party. The AOC Party seems to have taken over, as we saw on full display during the speech from President Trump. There has been a lot of pushback, even from people like David Axelrod and others that said it hurts their cause. It makes them seem... Well, Fetterman put it perfectly, that they're like a car alarm, very loud and obnoxious, but people are ignoring it. And I thought that was a wonderful way of putting it. But it created the optics of a party that is so out of touch with Americans, because we had the president's speech where he interspersed during the speech these great human stories like DJ Daniel, which we're going to talk about in just a moment. And the Democrats could not even clap for that. And then you see the optics of Trump alongside Vance and Speaker Johnson, and it showed who was presidential, who was in the leadership position, and who were like children that didn't get their way. And that was their decision. They made that decision. So we're going to talk about that, and I appreciate that comment. A comment from a different viewer. This is interesting. No name on this. I'm not sure if the poem is original or not, but I thought it was nice to get a poem early in the morning. A poem. Joe and Jill ran up the hill to take their crowning glory. Don came down and took the crown, and now they're not a story. Thank you very much. The one reason the Biden family is a story, did you see that Hunter Biden went to court to try to, I guess, alleviate some of these costs? He says he's broke. Surprise, surprise, his paintings are no longer selling. I wonder why that is. I wonder what would have changed. I mean, art is art. Great art is great art. Why would who's in office, why would that matter if an art collector were to be buying art and saw something beautiful? Why would it matter who was in office? I'm not sure. You be the judge of that and why that is. Comment from a different viewer. This is from Mark. Good morning. Well, good morning, Mark. Oh boy, I keep saying that. Oh boy, Doge is hitting close to home. They're going to close the only Social Security office in Chemung County by the mall. I did see that report. I saw that Chuck Schumer had released a statement on that. We are going to talk about Doge in response to some of these cuts. I see that President Trump, and we'll talk about it further, is saying, it's interesting. A couple of weeks ago, he said, I wish Musk would be going faster, quicker. And now he's saying, you know what, let's go scalpel instead of hatchet. So they're going to have bi-weekly meetings with Doge and the cabinet members because it seems as if there's an indication that it's going to become more of a decision by the cabinet officials. And this makes sense. It starts with Musk, but now that Donald Trump has his cabinet in there, the people he's chosen, maybe it's time that they take over the reins and start looking at what needs to be cut and what not, and what to keep. So yes, I have seen some pushback on that locally, and I'd love to hear your opinion on that in general. A comment from a different viewer. This is from Jack from Tennessee. Yes, he's writing in from Tennessee. Hi, Jack. I hope all is well in Tennessee. The Logan Act is a law that prohibits U.S. citizens from communicating with foreign governments without authorization from the U.S. government. The Democrats met with Zelensky before he spoke to Trump. What's to stop them from doing it to everyone else he meets with, unless he holds them accountable? Thank you, Jack. I hope things are well in Tennessee. Okay, as I'd mentioned, we're going to have Tom O'Mara on the program, but there was breaking news last night, and this is fluid, so bear with me. Coming from the Daily News, state officials came to an agreement late yesterday with striking corrections officers that allows them to avoid punishment for the illegal work stoppage as long as they return to work early Friday. Now, we've had indications that there's been agreements in the past, and they fell through. This may be a little bit different. State Correction Commissioner Daniel Marticello said he had agreed to a memorandum of understanding with the strikers that reinstates dozens of officers who've been terminated or resigned, forgoes discipline, and adjourns any contempt proceedings against them, and contains components aimed at addressing complaints about work hours and safety concerns. He said during an evening press conference, and again, this comes from the Daily News, this reflects the will of the people on the line. I heard you, I received your demands, and I received your terms. We need you. We want you. We recognize the important work that you do. Now, the strike began all the way back on February the 17th at some 12,500 officers at 38 to 40 of the state's 42 prisons. At one point, we heard 41 out of 42 prisons. We were trying to figure out what that one prison was. Governor Hochul deployed thousands of members of the National Guard. You know that. Now, what are some of the, according to reports, this coming from New York State of Politics, that the Department of Corrections and Community Supervision actually bypassed the union on this and offered the terms directly to the COs on the ground. The terms outlined yesterday evening include establishing a committee focused on safety dealing directly with the effects of the HALT Act, reinstating the health insurance effective immediately of those employees who had it terminated on the day of their return, allowing staff to continue working 12 hours until each facility has returned to normal operations, where they can then return to 8-hour shifts, continuing 2.5 times hour overtime starting 30 days from the day employees return to work, expedite the reallocation process for both corrections officers and sergeants to within 2 months, a process that usually takes almost 18 months, not issuing any issues of discipline to any employee who returns to work today, and finally, confirmation that DOCCS memo issued on February 10th requesting a comprehensive review of security staffing with the goal to cut staff to 70% of current levels is rescinded. So Marticello said the department will take the necessary steps for all employees who return to work Friday to adjourn Taylor Law contempt proceedings against the individuals that have already been named. The state's Taylor Law, among other things, prohibits state public employees from striking. So that's a quick update on your corrections officer. It's interesting because, as I mentioned, we interviewed Tom O'Mara late yesterday, and this was very fluid at the time. He was hearing about the negotiations, and you'll hear all about it in the interview. But I did want to warn you that very beginning when we talked about the strike, some of these issues have changed, and we mentioned it in the interview, that at the time of the recording, where the process was. So Marticello said, recognizing that I need to hear from my workforce directly, I traveled the state and took phone calls from corrections officers and corrections sergeants across the state, hearing directly from them what would be necessary for them to return to the workplace. So he said, we had a verbal agreement that the union would enter into a memorandum of understanding between myself, the Director of Office of Employee Relations, and NYSCOPA, President Chris Summers. Unfortunately, this evening, President Summers and his executive board have refused to sign the memorandum of understanding, once again failing his members. I heard my workforce loud and clear, and I will not fail to deliver on what I promised. When reached for response, a spokesman for NYSCOPA declined to comment. So this, again, and I know we have a lot of people on the ground there that have been a part of the strike, corrections officers that watch this program. Is this, where do we stand this morning? I know yesterday I saw reports from various people that were attending the protest, the whatever you want to call it, protest, the strike, that some of the burning barrels, some of the things, the tents that were set up, or pop-ups that were set up, were being dismantled. So what have you heard? What are you seeing on the ground? Does this look as if it will take effect? Bypassing, again, the union, docs bypassing the union and offering a term directly to the striking CEOs, which what I like about that is, if you recall, when a couple weeks ago, I think now, all kind of blends together, but when Governor Hochul said that they had reached a deal with the union, and the striking officer said, we never had any say in this. The unions never had anything to do with this from the beginning. So that doesn't really land with us. And of course, it gave Governor Hochul, which he thought was an opportunity to reach the media and say, see, we made a deal, when it was the corrections officers that had no say in it. And of course, that failed miserably. But according to reports coming in late last night, that it looks to that many corrections officers will return to work today to end the, I think it's actually, wasn't it 18-day work stoppage? Or I guess full 17 days. Today would have been the 18th. All right, we've got to take a short break. We've got other really breaking news stories from yesterday. Tom O'Mara coming up a little bit later on. Keep those comments and waves coming in, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Have you been unable to work for over a year due to a mental or physical disability?
Were you recently denied Social Security disability benefits? Great news. You may be eligible for money, back pay, relief.
If you've been pre-qualified and diagnosed with a recognized condition that prohibits you from working, our lawyers can file a claim to get your disability benefit.
Call us today and find out more.
Call now, 844-617-0440.
Welcome to Pangea Global Tea House.
Pangea Global Tea House offers comfort foods of the world with over 50 teas and a sampling of cuisine from over 10 countries. Come in and try our must-try Nikujaga Japanese beef stew or Penang curry tofu specialties today.
From laminate and vinyl to tile and wood, Floor & Decor has more options for pros, homeowners, and anyone looking for the right look at the right price. Your next beautiful space is at Floor & Decor.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC or visit our website at WYDCTV.com. Elmira. Horseheads, Hornell, Bath, Watkins Glen. Big Fox 10 p.m. News, the first primetime local news in the Twin Tiers. Catch news from your area, weather forecasts, and local events. And visit our website at WYDCTV.com anytime to stay up to date on weather, news articles, and local events. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. What a beautiful view of historic Market Street, where we're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Comment from a viewer. Have any of your viewers tried to get someone at the Social Security office? I did. It took 3 months. When I finally got in, I was the only person there. Great service for only $300,000 a year. Thank you very much, viewer. Quickly, a couple of breaking stories I want to bring to your attention so you're ready for your day. A former active duty Army soldiers, two of them I should say, former active duty Army soldiers are charged in a scheme allegedly selling sensitive military information to China. So 2 active duty and 1 former soldier were arrested in Oregon yesterday for the alleged roles in gathering and sending sensitive information to individuals in China. This is according to the Department of Justice. The accused are Jin Zhou and Li Tian, who were stationed at Joint Base Louis McCord, and former soldier Ruo Duan. All 3 are charged with conspiring to commit bribery and theft of government property. Zhou is facing additional charges of conspiring to obtain and transmit national defense information to an individual not authorized to receive it. Attorney General Pam Bondi stated, "The defendants arrested today are accused of betraying our country, actively working to weaken America's defense capabilities, and empowering our adversaries in China. They will face swift, severe, and comprehensive justice." So there is a quick breaking story. And as we find out more, we will keep you informed. We learned about Trump, of course, signing that 1-month pause on tariffs against Canada, Mexico, as he pushes specifically Canada to crack down on the flow of migrants and fentanyl. So that is a story that is still kind of ongoing, but it's something that the media continues to mention, and we talked about it a bit yesterday. But to that viewer's point about Musk and the closing of the Social Security office in Chemung County, Trump is reining in Musk and now announced a bi-weekly Doge meeting with the cabinet. He revealed plans for cabinet secretaries and other high-level administration officials to hold more sway in Doge's push for personal cuts. Cabinet officials will meet with Doge every 2 weeks until the administration has wrapped up its efforts to revamp the federal workforce. Trump announced, while lauding Elon Musk's efforts as an incredible success, saying, quote, "Now that we have my cabinet in place, I've instructed the secretaries and leadership to work with DOGE on cost-cutting measures and staffing. As the secretaries learn about and understand the people working for the various departments, they can be very precise as to who will remain and who will go. Now, we know there's been a lot of cuts. There's been scenarios where some employees were asked to come back. So this is, to use Trump's term, to use a scalpel more than just a hatchet, but praising Elon Musk for what was a really incredible job early on with really not a lot of information in a way, meaning not a lot of information on how, we didn't have the cabinet people in. So he went in and said, we're going to cut costs, and that's what he did. Hatchett emphasized, we have the scalpel rather than the hatchet. The combination of them, Elon, DOGE, and other great people will be able to do things at a historic level. Now, this comes after the closed-door meeting that most cabinet secretaries attended with Musk. It was a very positive one, Trump said. It's very important that we cut levels down to where they should be, but it's also important to keep the best and most productive people. And I think that's reasonable. I think that was, I'm not talking about the criticism from the left that hate Musk and had the paddle boards during the speech. I'm not talking about anything that Musk does is evil, that group. I'm not talking about that. But I think even MAGA supporters, Trump supporters, were saying, well, maybe, there are instances where it can be a more fine-tooth comb as compared to maybe the sweeping overhauls. But it is interesting because, as we mentioned, Donald Trump saying not that long ago, it was right around the time of the emails, I wish he'd move even faster in referencing Musk. And that was when Musk sent out the email telling me the 5 things you did last week. The president has talked about some of DOGE's cost-cutting achievements during his annual presidential address to the joint session of Congress. Musk later followed up on X and hailed it as a very productive meeting, downplaying the fact that the president has seemingly limited his power. Trump later reiterated to reporters that DOGE has done an amazing job. I want the cabinet members to keep good people. I don't want to see a big cut where a lot of good people are cut. I want the cabinet members to go first, keep all the people you want, anybody that you need. I want them to do the best job they can do, where we have good people. That's precious. So there's kind of an update there. Some in the far left media are taking it weirdly as a, sign of defeat or something. I'm not really sure what it is, or maybe it's just it gives them the opportunity to attack Musk. Politico saying that Trump puts new limits on Elon Musk. President Trump convened his cabinet in person on Thursday to deliver a message. You're in charge of your departments, not Elon Musk. According to 2 administration officials, Trump told top members of his administration that Musk was empowered to make recommendations to the department, but not to issue unilateral decisions on staffing and policy. Musk was also reportedly in the room. The meeting followed a series of mass firings and threats to government workers from the billionaire Tesla founder who helms the Department of Government Efficiency. Just a quick update on that. Now, do you ever notice, I just think it's interesting, whenever they talk about cuts that Musk has proposed or has made, it's never, just Elon Musk. It's always billionaire Elon Musk, because to the left and to the media, billionaire is a dirty word. Making it to that level, to the world's richest man, is a negative to them. So that is a quick update, kind of tying it in with a viewer comment. We are going to talk about a little bit more about the joint sessions speech. We do have a few other things about DOGE. Also, maybe a couple New York State issues. And as I had mentioned earlier, if you are just joining us, this is a very fluid story, but the state and striking corrections officers have made a deal to end the 17-day work stoppage. Now, the union is opposing it. But remember, the union has never really had a say from the beginning. They were not a part of the discussion with the strikers. That's why they called it a wildcat strike. And they originally said there was a deal with the state, and the CO said, no, there isn't. And that was a very bad deal. The language in that was so perfect for the government to kind of one-up the corrections officers, things like promises to ease the overtime requirements. What's the definition of ease? Is it only 2 24-hour shifts a week? I mean, what did it mean? Or suspend the HALT Act for 90 days, but to be able to look at certain aspects of the HALT Act after 30 days to re-implement them. So really only a 30-day suspension. It was a very bad deal, and the strikers rightfully said, no, not interested. But now the DOCS, DOCCS, has bypassed the union and offered terms directly, kind of showing respect in a way, directly to the striking COs. Now, as we had mentioned, the Taylor law, I should say, makes this all very kind of difficult and a lot of moving pieces. So as you hear from Senator Tom O'Mara in the next hour, great interview. We recorded it yesterday, but I want to be very crystal clear that some of the information at the beginning when we talk about corrections officer has changed. That's why as a rule, we try to always do live interviews. This just worked better because he was in studio rather than do a Zoom meeting online. So I asked him to come in yesterday. So some things have changed just a little bit, but the overall crux of the argument is still very much there. But we got to take a short break. Keep those comments coming in. Your thoughts on the strike, your thoughts on Elon Musk and the new approach with Doge, and whatever else you want to talk about. There's so many topics during the Trump administration we could change constantly. We are going to talk when we come back another update from yesterday's program, and then we're going to get into a couple of quick things that happened since President Trump's speech to the joint session of Congress. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Getting the right representation.
It matters.
Hiring a law firm whose focus is motor vehicle accident cases.
It matters.
Hiring a firm with the experience and resources to maximize your recovery.
It matters.
William Mattar is the largest motor vehicle accident firm in New York State. We got that way by winning. If you're hurt in a car, it matters who you hire. Call William Mattar. Visit WilliamMattar.com.
What if there was a place where every kid got a chance to be great? There is a place. Milton Hershey School. You see, we're more than a school. We change lives. And you can be next.
Beat the dark days of winter and have a vacation from taxation with the Hesselson's Hot Tub. What better way to start or end every day than with hot water therapy and your very own Hesselson's Hot Tub. With every spa purchase, Hesselson's guarantees great customer satisfaction and the best service team in the area. Plus, with Hesselson's Vacation from Taxation sales event, free steps, free cover lifter, free music, and 0% interest-free financing. Ask about Hesselson's chemical auto ship program and save even more. Stop in today and see why after 70 years it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his car.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
Welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. How is the planning going in preparation? Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC or visit our website at The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I'm your host, Frank Acom. Let's go to some viewer comments, shall we? Good morning. Well, hey, good morning. Climate Fact Friday. Okay, thank you, Bob. It's Climate Fact Friday. All right, your guest on Wednesday, yes, John Buren, was very concerned about the solar farm in Chemung County, and rightfully so. Wildlife habitat loss on 24 acres would be catastrophic. The use of herbicides like MSM-60 to control grass and weeds around the solar panels is harmful to humans and wildlife. The runoff to surrounding area can kill fish miles away. 24 acres of forest can sequester up to 140 metric tons of CO2 a year. That is going to offset the carbon production by, or let me try that again. That is enough to offset the carbon produced by 30 vehicles annually. The people are being lied to about the environmental impact. Thank you, Bob, for our Climate Fact Friday. I love this next comment. Well, I love all the comments. I want to be clear about that. But this one is very kind. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. I had to step out of town and have been Frankless for 3 days, which is no small sacrifice. It might be time to launch a Frankly Speaking podcast so we can listen to Frank on the fly. I am frankful to see you today, though. Well, I am glad that you're tuning in. Thank you for the kind words. That has made my Friday. I appreciate it. All right. So an update from yesterday. Frankful. I've never heard that before. I haven't. So anyway, I'm distracted. I like that comment so much. So yesterday we asked the question, do you think Gavin Newsom stands any chance after the wildfires? Because remember, he was a clear favorite in the Democrat Party to win the nomination in 2028. Yes, I know it's very early. And we had a little bit of discussion on the program yesterday. Well, it's crystal clear he still is going to run because now he's portraying himself. I shouldn't say portraying himself as Mr. Moderate. Mr. Moderate, a guy who is so far left, but he's seeing that his far left policies not popular nationwide, clearly after the landslide victory in November. So Gavin Newsom went on none other than Charlie Kirk's program. And he talked about his split with the Democrat Party when it comes to transgendered athletes. He acknowledged that it's, quote, deeply unfair to allow transgender athletes to compete against biological women while chatting with Charlie Kirk. But then he had to complain that conservatives weaponize the issue. I think it's an issue of fairness, said Gavin Newsom. I completely agree with you on that. It's an issue of fairness. It's deeply unfair. I am not wrestling with the fairness issue. I totally agree with you. Now, keep in mind, Newsom is term limited and can't run for governor in 2026. So that's why, and has been a staunch advocate for LGBTQ rights. Last year, he signed a law banning schools from notifying parents about their children's gender identity. So I don't want to go into his past statements, and this is an example of him, and not just on this issue, but in general, going on Charlie Kirk's show. He's trying to create a new Gavin Newsom because he's going to have 2026 to 2028 to essentially campaign for the nomination for president of the United States. Some have speculated, some at the time speculated that he was going to be Harris's running mate, but as many said, and we said it here on this program, it would make no sense for him to do that because if Harris failed, as she ultimately did, it would hurt his chances in the future. So he continued by saying there's also humility and grace. That these poor people are more likely to commit suicide, have anxiety and depression. And the way that people talk down to vulnerable communities is an issue that I have a hard time with as well. So both things I can hold in my hands. How can we address this issue with the kind of decency that I think you know is inherent in you, but not always expressed on the issue? So again, I'm not going to go through all of his past statements and how this has changed, but he believes that conservatives have weaponized transgenderism. Newsom pointed to the Trump campaign's ad that declared Kamala's for they, them, President Trump is for you. And a lot of people pointed to that ad as a very impactful ad from Trump at the time. Newsom said she didn't even react to it, which was even more devastating. Then you had the video of Harris as a validator. Brutal. He acknowledged it was a great ad. He praised, and this is what I'm saying, and I don't want to talk anymore about Gavin Newsom, don't get me wrong, but he really praised Charlie Kirk, saying that even his son watches Charlie Kirk because he has a son with Kimberly Guilfoyle. What do you do, seriously, Charlie? Give us some advice. You're making a blank dent. Kirk argued that Democrats need to get better ideas. You guys kicked out like your best people. We're the ones that have Democrats in our cabinet, winning the electoral majority vote. Look at that ideological diversity. You could say diversity is our strength. Anyway, just wanted to bring that up quickly. Newsom, keep in mind, is very much like Hochul. He's a better quote-unquote politician. But after the wildfires, I would think that would discredit him from being the front runner, but you never know. And short-term memory, right? That will have been nearly 4 years in the future when the election will take place, nearly. So will that be forgotten at that time? Because we know even some far-left Hollywood celebrities were outraged at his policies during the wildfires and since. Another update from yesterday's program. The State Department has revoked first visa of foreign students linked to the Hamas supporting disruptions. I know we talk about the anti-Semitic, pro-Hamas, anti-Israel, anti-American, anti-police protests. The State Department has revoked the visa of a student who participated in protesting in favor of Hamas, a move in line with President Trump's call for canceling visas of students involved in the anti-Israel demonstration on college campuses. The State Department confirmed the matter to Fox News. They did not identify the student, of course, or what university they attended. Yesterday evening, we revoked the first visa of an alien who was previously cited for criminal behavior in connection with Hamas supporting disruptions. This individual was a university student. ICE will proceed with removing this person from the country. So there is an update, because we talked quite a bit yesterday about the anti-Semitic protests. All right, I'm just looking at my time. We got to take a short break. Keep those comments coming in. We're having a lively discussion this morning. A lot of great waves. I appreciate that. We're going to take a break. Again, the DOCCS bypassed the Corrections Officers Union and offered the terms directly to the striking correction officers, and it looks as if they will be returning to work on Friday. Have you heard different? Are you a corrections officer? Are you getting ready for work this morning? If you are, we would love to hear from you. But we got to take a break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Your Social Security disability claim has been denied, and you don't understand why. Your physical or emotional problems make it impossible for you to work. I'm Peter Gorton of Lockman & Gorton. Don't give up. Together, we'll file your appeal to give you the best chance to win the benefits you deserve.
For a free consultation, call Lockman & Gorton, toll free 1-800-698-0567.
Beat the dark days of winter and have a vacation from taxation with the Hustlesense Hot Tub. What better way to start or end every day than with hot water therapy and your very own Hustlesense Hot Tub? With every spa purchase, Hustlesense guarantees great customer satisfaction and the best service team in the area. Plus, with Hustlesense Vacation from Taxation sales event, free steps, free cover lifter, free music, and 0% interest-free financing. Ask about Hustlesense Chemical Auto Ship program and save even more. Stop in today and see why after 70 years it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hustlesense.
Corning, Elmira, Horseheads, Hornell, Bath, Watkins Glen. Big Fox, 10 p.m. news, the first primetime local news in the Twin Tiers. Catch news from your area, weather forecasts, and local events. And visit our website at WYDCTV.com anytime to stay up to date on weather, news articles, and local events. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Comment from a viewer. No, Newsom. He couldn't run California. How could he run the country? I agree. But what I think is interesting, he's trying to paint himself as Mr. Moderate by going on Charlie Kirk's show, differing minutely, but differing from the overall Democrat Party stance on certain issues. This is just him dipping his toe in the water because, remember, he's kind of ever-changing. He was a very big Biden supporter, but many people thought he was campaigning really in case something happened if Biden were to step down. This was early on. Ultimately, Biden did, but it was too late, and they put Harris in. But if not, if it would have happened a little sooner, probably would have been Newsom in that position. Okay, yesterday, Al Green, Representative Al Green, was censured in the House, and showing that, way back after the election, we said, we wonder, way back, not that long ago, if Democrats had learned their lesson, if they're going to do some soul searching. And of course, we learned throughout the time since then, but specifically, to put a fine point on it, during the speech, we learned that they had not learned their lesson. And then just to put the cherry on top, yesterday, as he was being censured, Democrats, not all, but many Democrats gathered around him, and they looked up at the camera and knew where the camera placement was and started singing a song. I couldn't tell what the song was, but started singing a song in solidarity with, and Al Green was the one who started singing So no, they have not learned their lesson. But 10 Democrats even joined, and that's how they make this article, because they realize how damaging the Democrats' reaction during the speech was. They realize how damaging Al Green's display was. So they're trying to now say, it's not every Democrat. 10 Democrats join with Republicans to censure Representative Al Green for Trump's speech protest. That would not normally be the headline if they didn't think, wow, this really did damage. I mean, some prominent leading Democrats saying how much damage the Democrats did to themselves when they didn't stand for DJ Daniel, when they didn't stand for so many of those people that Trump had there, or even policies like that one viewer said early on, policies that really they should or do support, they couldn't even stand. And the ironic part of it, not ironic, but how brilliant it was for Trump to highlight that early on in his speech so that they could prove his point for him during the whole speech. So this, I'm telling you, watching that display during the censure was uncomfortable. It was another odd protest from the Democrat Party. So if there is a Fetterman wing and an AOC wing, I believe the AOC wing is dominating at this point. Now, divergent tactics, this is coming from CNN, were on full display during Tuesday night's address, with some Democrats holding signs, walking out, or boycotting it altogether. The part that drove me crazy, and we had that piece about it yesterday, is just the grandstanding, the showboating to get as many likes as possible, to get as many views on TikTok. We had that one representative holding the sign that says, "This is not normal," wanting to get a picture next to Trump because she knew in her circle, in her bubble on Blue Sky, that she was going to be the center of attention. She was going to be the face of the resistance, because that is the goal, being the face of the resistance. That's why Governor Hochul recently called herself the leader of the resistance. Now, others took a more muted approach, following the guidance of House Democrat leadership, who had urged members not to mount high-profile protests and to show restraint during the address, cautioning that the GOP could seize on such actions. It wasn't even the GOP. It was the American people watching, saying, well, we see who the leaders are. We see them in Trump's patriotic speech. We see them behind him with J.D. Vance and Speaker Johnson. And then we see people acting like children. So it remains to be seen whether Green faces further reprimand for his actions, as a group of conservative lawmakers plan to file a measure to strip the congressman of his committee assignments. The House Freedom Caucus said they expect that to be brought to the floor next week. Lawmakers ultimately voted 224 to 198 to censure Green. So 198 Democrats, again, to my point about the AOC wing, 198 Democrats said, good job, Representative Green. That's the exact, how do I want to word it, face of our party. That is the exact actions we want to be associated with and represented by. Now, a freshman Democrat, Representative Shamari Figures of Alabama, voted present. So, as Mike Johnson called for the congressman to be formally censured because there is a kind of a dressing down moment at a part of this process, Green led a group. And notice how this is buried on page 2, way at the bottom. Green led a group of Democrats in singing the gospel song, "We Shall Overcome," on the House floor, upsetting some Republicans who called for order. Johnson then called the House into recess so the floor could be cleared. So clearly not learning their lesson. They think what they're doing is great. I mean, they want to pat themselves on the back over this. They got together in a room and said, all right, we're going to sing "We Shall Overcome," because that'll be a great response to, again, it's not just conservative outlets. It's the mainstream media and people like David Axelrod and others, Fetterman. We have some other elected representatives, not just these 10 who voted to censure Green, that are saying, this is embarrassing for our party. It's not about TikTok views and likes, and it's not about making yourself the center of attention. It's about, if you're a Democrat, it's about getting the job done, doing something. And they're clearly not. They're falling back on the grandstanding, the showboating, really cringeworthy, and I hate that term, but cringeworthy efforts to try to, I don't know, embarrass a group of people that overwhelmingly voted for Donald Trump in November. Just to be clear, the 10 Democrats who voted with the Republicans to censure Al Green were Amy Barra of California, Ed Case of Hawaii, Jim Costa of California, Laura Gillen of New York, Jim Himes of Connecticut, Chrissy Houlihan of Pennsylvania, Marcy Kaptur of Ohio, Jared Markowitz of Florida, Mary Gluskamp Perez of Washington, and Tom Suozzi of New York. Quote, I don't mind being one of 10 Democrats who said, no, there's a deeper principle at stake here, which is reverence for the institution, Himes said, adding that lawmakers need to act with a decorum and with a civility that says to the world that we are a serious country. I would argue that you should present yourself as a serious party, because right now you are not presenting yourself as a serious party. She said, I have no love for Donald Trump, but I do have reverence for the office of the president. Most of the 10 Democrats are considered centrist in their party and belong to either the Blue Dog Coalition, the New Democrat Coalition, or the Bipartisan Problem Solvers Caucus. Many represent competitive seats, including 3 of the Democrats, Kapur, Suozzi, and Gluskamp Perez, who represents districts that Trump won in November. So there could be, of course, that aspect to it. People are, we're going to say, angry, one Democrat lawmaker said, speaking on condition of anonymity. The lawmaker added that Green's antics were viewed as selfish. A lot of people are like, why aren't we on the same team? House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries told reporters that it was a vote that his caucus took without any official recommendation from the Democratic whip, and people made a decision based on what they view to be the right thing to do connected to their district. Speaking on the House floor later Thursday, Green said he has no reason in my heart to be upset over this censure. So again, there you are. Your response, as people have said, you embarrassed your own party. That it was a circus there, a circus act. Having done that, there's no remorse from Mr. Green. And he and many Democrat colleagues joined in to create another disruption just to prove that they cannot be taken seriously. And to that point yesterday where a longtime Democrat wrote for the New York Post saying that he never thought he'd be so embarrassed of his party. We've got to take a short break. Man, this hour's going quick. Coming up in the next hour, we're going to be talking to Senator Tom O'Mara. You're not going to want to miss that. As I mentioned, it is pre-recorded. Some things have changed when it comes to the corrections officers because we learned, late last night, the states that the docs has bypassed the union, offering terms directly to the striking COs to return to work on Friday. The union is opposing it, so it's not set in stone. This is very much still a fluid story. But we'll be talking about where we were as of yesterday around 3 o'clock. And we do say in the interview that at the time, this is the facts that we know at the time. So anyway, I see some comments coming in. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Trust your child to Dr. Hench's at either Watkins Glen, Elmira, Horseheads, or Elkland Family Dentistry. All 4 locations provide cutting-edge technology to make sure your visit is comfortable and stress-free. Dr. Hench's offers treatment in all areas of dentistry, including same-day crowns, implants, root canals, oral surgery, and treatment for all ages. For the best dental care in the region, trust Dr. Hench's and his staff at Watkins Glen, Horseheads, Elmira, and Elkland Family Dentistry. Call any one of his offices today or visit them online for more information.
From laminate and vinyl to tile and wood, Floor & Decor has more options for pros, homeowners, and anyone looking for the right look at the right price. Your next beautiful space is at Floor & Decor.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. How is the planning going in preparation? Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC or visit our website at The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Thank you for joining us. A couple comments from viewers. Hi, Frank. Good morning. Well, hey, good morning. I'm not sure if this is right. Just making sure. I have another good morning show, and I'm listening. Yes, it is right. You did text the right number. You see the number on the bottom of your screen. You can text at any time, day or night. And we try to do our best to read them live during the program, or if they were sent in at a different time than the live broadcast, read them later on. So, yep, you can send your comments there. If you are not a texter, you can leave a voicemail, and I'll try my best to. Google does this thing where it translates for me so I can read it live on the air. It's a struggle sometimes, but I'm not trying to discourage you from a voicemail. I'd still love to hear them, and I'll try to do my best to get to the point of what you were saying. So, yes, you did it right. Thank you. Fred writes in, once again, the Democrats were trolled by Trump on Tuesday night. The symptoms of TDS are so predictable. Days later, we are still talking about it. Yes, but there's something about that that they like. You and I would be embarrassed, right, if this was making national news of us storming out and having kind of a hissy fit. We'd be embarrassed. We sure wouldn't come in the next day and say, now let's sing a song. I see your one comment. I'm not going to read it, the whole thing, but I like your comment very much. Mr. Green Jeans, I remember that character. There's a blast. Has got to go. And we'll leave it at that. It wasn't too bad. But so cancer survivor DJ Daniel had a couple messages for people involved in all of this. Did you see? He said to Democrats who are being mean to the president, I'm on your bumper. Please stop being mean to President Trump, because if I see you being mean to him, I'm coming after you. If you're a Democrat and you're being mean to President Trump, I'm on your bumper. Isn't that great? He also, obviously, DJ Daniel, now the youngest honorary Secret Service agent, was asked by the Post, the New York Post, they make me mad when asked about who's been attacking him and attacking Trump. If you're not going to say something nice, you don't need to be there. Honestly, if it was up to me and I was the president, I would literally stop what I was doing, escort disrespectful people out, and have them banned. They wouldn't be allowed back in. My dad says that you can't reward bad behavior. Very good point, DJ. Even if they don't like President Trump, they need to respect the position. Man, what does that mean? That this young man with such an amazing story just put all of those representatives in their place and could not be more spot on that you don't reward bad behavior. That the Democrats just got lectured by a 13-year-old boy and he destroyed them. Al Green embarrassed us, DJ said. He's from our congressional district. Oh my gosh, is that right? Wow, I did not realize that. That takes that to a whole new level of Al Green's stunt. That he's actually in DJ's district. So that's what he thought about. Well, he didn't make it far enough to clap or not clap for DJ. Honestly, he was out early on. So, but Al Green embarrassed us. He's from our congressional district, said DJ. I tell him that he was very disgraceful and very disrespectful. I think there's a point to Al Green where he just likes being mentioned. He wants to stay quote unquote relevant. He also talked about being invited to the Oval Office, saying, as soon as I saw him, meaning Trump, I gave the president a big hug. He said that he's proud of me and handed me a signed hat. I'm not going to wear it. It's a collector's item and it's valuable. Now, he's been made an honorary member of nearly 1,000 police departments around the U.S. Isn't that cool? He even said he was in Jersey using kind of that accent, like a Sopranos accent. Officers there could be a little feisty, and they kind of rubbed off on me. Isn't this great? During his VIP visit to Washington, DJ met a lot of people, and while he is not one to play favorites, they were all great, he said diplomatically. He should be running for office. Never mind Secret Service. Let's get his campaign started. He can run for Al Green's job. But one notable figure in particular struck a chord. While in the White House, I was walking around and magically, deliciously, ran into Elon Musk. We took a picture. He's a party dude and strictly business. He has the hands to fix America. Asked if he has a message for the man behind Doge, DJ replied, keep doing what you're doing and keep up the good work. He had less encouraging words for Rachel Maddow, and we talked about that yesterday. Rachel Maddow and Nicole Wallace, who used DJ's story as a way to hit Trump on politics, to try to attack Trump on politics. Even saying it was disgusting for Trump to highlight DJ's amazing story. DJ said, if you have nothing nice to say, then don't say it at all. And finally, his message to Trump, thank you for saving the United States. Isn't that nice? All right, last break of the hour. Stay with us. We will be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, please stay with us. Wrapping up hour number 1.
Hard water makes it hard to keep your home looking like the work of art you've always envisioned it would be. Culligan softeners reduce hard water buildup and your cleaning time, transforming every drop, every splash, every rinse into the fine art of a long-lasting clean. With a Culligan water softener, revel in the breathtaking beauty of your home, just the way you've always pictured it. Culligan, water you love.
Why it's hard to stop a train? It's how we've invented products that reinvented our world. It's how we test as hard as the elements do. It's how we run.
Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning in Corning is now offering residential plumbing services. A local, veteran-owned and operated company with over 25 years experience. You can trust the experts at Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning.
Like the dark days of winter and have a vacation from taxation with the Hustlesense Hot Tub. What better way to start or end every day than with hot water therapy and your very own Hustlesense Hot Tub. With every spot purchase, Hustlesense guarantees great customer satisfaction and the best service team in the area. Plus, with Hustlesense Vacation from Taxation sales event, free steps, free cover lifter, free music, and 0% interest-free financing. Ask about Hustlesense Chemical Auto Ship program and save even more. Stop in today and see why after 70 years it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hustlesense.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on Market Street in Corning. Let's go to some viewer comments. Sure, you could trust Newsom. He's destroyed an entire state and doesn't know it. Nothing to see here. Exactly right. And Fred adds, a different viewer, adds, Newsom has or plans to launch his own podcast. That will be another way to funnel cash to a former governor through advertising. Yes, he'll be a former governor. He term limits out in 2026. Comment from Ken. Obviously, the reason the 10 Democrats were allowed to vote to censure Green was that they were in districts that could go either way. Hopefully, the voters in those districts are smart enough to realize that those votes to censure were not a vote of their beliefs. They were just to try and fool the voters into thinking they weren't radical left. Yes, Ken, to your point, you're absolutely right, because even Hakeem Jeffrey said that they didn't kind of whip any vote. They just said, do what you think's best for your district, meaning how you can still win your district. You're exactly right. Now, we just mentioned what DJ had to say about the attacks on him and President Trump with that amazing speech. Well, Trump ripped into some people yesterday, too. He was signing executive orders in the Oval Office, and he was asked about Al Green breaking decorum and all of that. He said, I thought it was very embarrassing for the Democrats and what happened the other night. And that's not said for any other reason than it's obvious. It's fact. Even CNN fake news said that. They came out and they said it. Yeah, there's been a lot of Democrats that weren't happy with this. I found it embarrassing. How do you defend it to people that know you're a Democrat and saying, what were your thoughts on it? It's indefensible. But then he went on to talk about Rachel Maddow and Nicole Wallace and their disgusting comments about DJ Daniels' story. Nicole Wallace even suggesting that if DJ were a Secret Service agent during January 6th, he may be one that would commit suicide. I mean, it was so twisting yourself up in a pretzel just to attack Trump on a story that everybody should have been praising. He said, and worse than CNN is MSDNC, which is the worst. And the good news is very few people watch that anymore. They have lost such credibility. And frankly, what Nicole Wallace said I've never been a fan of hers, and she's not very talented. But I'll tell you, what she said the other day about the young man is disgraceful. She should be forced to resign, and Rachel Maddow should be forced to resign. Nobody watches her anyway. It's not possible they pay her as much money as I hear, but certainly she's lost all credibility, both of them. What they said the other day, they should be forced to resign about that young person who is suffering greatly. Democrat Representative, how am I doing on time? I'm doing good. Democrat Representative Ro Khanna from California and Laura Gillen were not happy with how it all went down by ignoring DJ Daniel. In an anecdote shared on X, Khanna began by recounting what a flight attendant told him while he was traveling this week. Jim Barrett, a flight attendant, politely chased me down at a Chicago airport. Sir, I'm a Democrat, but the way the party behaved was embarrassing, made us look heartless. I don't care who is up there. You stand for the boy with cancer. Be more rational and get your act together. Yeah. But they can say this now. Did they stand? Now we know the story. Representative Laura Gillen, Khanna said that he told the flight attendant that a few of us did stand and clap, and we must be the party that still believes in kindness, decency, and trying to bring people together. Representative Laura Gillen, Democrat from New York, also stood up for DJ and saying, quite frankly, there were moments where I feel like anger at some of the actions that have happened over the past month and a half prevented some of my colleagues from being able to stand up to support the little DJ Daniel. I stood up and applauded that little boy who is getting over cancer, wants to be a police officer, and I was disappointed that I was not joined by any of my colleagues. It is unclear if any other Democrats stood up for DJ, but every Republican clearly did. Okay, we are out of time for hour number one. Wow, really out of time. Stay with us. We'll be right back. We'll have one segment before we talk to Tom O'Mara in the next hour, so stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
It's time to say, not so fast, chronic kidney disease. Because with the progressive disease like CKD, slow is good. And believe me, I know all about slow. That's why I'm here to tell you about Jardiance. It's a little pill proven to slow the progression of CKD and reduce the risk of kidney failure, which can lead to dialysis.
Serious side effects include increased ketones in blood or urine, which can be fatal. Stop Jardiance and call your doctor right away if you have nausea, vomiting, stomach pain, tiredness, trouble breathing, or increased ketones. Jardiance may cause dehydration that can suddenly worsen kidney function and make you feel dizzy, lightheaded, or weak upon standing. Genital yeast infections in men and women, urinary tract infections, low blood sugar, or a rare life-threatening bacterial infection between and around the anus and genitals can occur. Call your doctor right away if you have fever or feel weak or tired, and pain, tenderness, swelling, or redness in the genital area. Don't use if allergic to Jardiance. Stop use if you have a serious allergic reaction. Call your doctor if you have rash, swelling, difficulty breathing, or swallowing. You may have increased risk for lower limb loss. Call your doctor right away if you have new pain or tenderness, sores, ulcers, or infection in your legs or feet.
So go on, say not so fast, CKD. Ask your doctor about Jardiance for chronic kidney disease.
7 reasons to buy certified pre-owned vehicles at Chilson Wilcox Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram.
7-year or 100,000-mile powertrain limited warranty.
3 months or 3,000-mile maximum care coverage.
Carfax Vehicle History Report.
Car rental allowance. 24-hour roadside assistance.
125-point vehicle inspection.
3-month Sirius XM radio.
Chilson Wilcox, selling cars a different way, the right way.
Big's 10 p.m. news, the first primetime local news in the Twin Tiers. Catch news from your area, weather forecasts, and local events. Or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
Dante Brown, Big Fox.
Well, it's hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and what an exciting hour we have in store for you. Well, we had one already, but this hour as well, because we'll be talking with Senator Tom O'Mara. In full disclosure, we recorded that interview late yesterday afternoon, and I want to highlight that because some things have changed with the CO strike. I've heard from various people, kind of a back and forth of whether or not those strikes will continue, because what happened was the Department of Corrections and Community Supervision bypassed the union and offered terms directly to the striking corrections officers to have them return to work today. Now, the union itself opposes this. So it's still, and with the Taylor law, it's still a little confusing. So I guess time will tell if there is actually a deal. I know they were saying by going directly to the COs, which I think is a sign of respect, really, that maybe that could be the difference. So your thoughts on that? If you hear anything on the ground, I've heard some say that they're going to protest. I've heard others say, I don't want to get specific with it, saying that they will return. So comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. You're doing a great job. Well, hey, thank you. Listen every single day. By the way, Democrats need to get on board or they will be left behind. Working together is a better option. I agree working together is a better option. I think it was made clear during Trump's speech that if they could not stand for those amazing stories of the amazing people that were Trump's guests, I don't think there's going to be much working together. I agree with you. It's a better option. I don't see a lot of unifying because if the Democrats not only have Al Green embarrass them and get censured, they protest during the censure. Come on. But thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it. We had talked about John Fetterman yesterday, where he went against his party and criticized his fellow Democrats for not standing for DJ Daniel. He was on Fox News and he said, I don't know why we can't fully celebrate. I mean, I have a 13-year-old myself, and thank God she's never had cancer, but I think that's something we can all celebrate there. And I think it was a touching moment. And like I said, that's the best part of the American experience. Now, if you recall, listen to this. Fox News Digital reached out to 30 Democrat lawmakers about why they did not stand for DJ, but only received 6 responses. Fetterman also said in an X post that Democrats' inaction only makes Trump look more presidential and restrained. Mazie Hirano from Hawaii said, that is a very individual thing. And aren't there a lot of other things we could be focusing on, as I would think? When asked why Democrat members did not stand for DJ, the word betrayal comes to mind with regard to the president. So imagine that's your response. Hey, why didn't you and your colleagues in the Democrat Party stand for DJ Daniel? That is a very individual thing. So some individuals don't stand with DJ Daniel, according to Mazie Hirano, if I'm reading this correctly. And aren't there a lot of other things we can be focusing on, as I would think? Well, we're sorry to bother you and take up your time and ask you a question of why you wouldn't stand for a 13-year-old cancer patient and that you believe there's something more important to talk about. Her anger there, her kind of snide remark shows you how damaging that decision was, and they realize it. Isn't there something else we could be talking about? Also, by the way, they don't normally like being asked tough questions. Now, I know this is coming from Fox News, so they may be a little more prepared in that situation, though it doesn't seem like Ms. Hirano was very well prepared with her response. But they're not used to the hard questions like Republicans receive over every little thing. But the word betrayal comes to mind with regard to the president. What does that have to do with not standing for DJ? I think Mazie Hirano might have been caught a little off guard. So tell me how, if you believe that Trump has betrayed something, I don't know, betrayed, are you talking about he betrayed DJ? He betrayed you because he put you in a situation where you got destroyed in the court of public opinion? Senator Jack Reed, ranking member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, said, quote, "We all stood when the president entered, which I think is appropriate. And I think, frankly, by and large, showed him respect to the office." Well, if there's one thing you can say, Democrats showed him and the office respect on Tuesday. What does that have to do with DJ as well? But, okay, so standing once, I see. Senator Peter Welch from Vermont said it was a moving story, but that what Trump left out, of course, is that he's cutting research for cancer, which is pretty bad. It's so sad. That you see DJ Daniel's story and your reaction is to go after Trump. What Peter Welch said is very akin to what Nicole Wallace said. Everything is political. And back to our viewer's comment, they're not going to get on board. They're not going to work together, unfortunately. Mark VZ from Texas said, "Our hearts are with the Riley family on the loss of their daughter and inspired at DJ's story. It shouldn't be confused with the disdain we have for President Trump's divisive and strident voice." Okay, why shouldn't it be confused? You didn't stand for those 2 people. Those 3 people, actually. again, you could try to twist this onto Trump. You're the one that made the ultimate, to Mazie Hirano's point, it was an individual decision. You were the individual that for politics decided not to support a 13-year-old cancer survivor getting awarded an honorary Secret Service badge, essentially. So when he stood up in that touching moment that gave us all goosebumps, tears in our eyes, when he stood up, he saw half of that chamber not standing and not applauding. Think of that optics for him, from his point of view, from his eyes. Representative Debbie Dingell said she clapped and was touched, not rolling my eyes. What does that mean? After the Secret Service gave him his badge and he sat back down, but then he reached back and hugged the Secret Service chief, it made me cry. I had tears. I was wiping a tear. Okay. To use the term that is so corny, well, then show us the receipts. A lot of cameras in that place. Childish. Eric Schmidt, the Republican, said the Democrats really embarrassed themselves. I mean, they wouldn't even stand for DJ who survived cancer. Katie Britt saying, I was so disappointed that my Democrat colleagues couldn't stand and show love for some of the Americans that were recognized tonight. That was really heartbreaking to me. All right, moving on from there. One last thing. Do you remember the name? Well, we have so many comments coming in. I've got Senator Tom O'Mara coming up in just a little bit, so I will read your message. I will do the best that I can to read your messages. Some waves coming in. When we come back from Tom O'Mara, again, well, here's a comment from Ken. You saw the Democrat video of Congresswoman shadowboxing. I have a great idea. The Republicans should set up an exhibition match between any one of those Democrats and Marjorie Taylor Greene. I bet they wouldn't be smiling after that matchup. Thanks, Ken. That was awkward. What was it, Street Fighter? They were trying to do like a choose-your-own fighter, and they all acted like they were fighters in a video game. It was Democrat Congresswoman. They're getting roasted online for it. It is. I hate to use the term cringe because it's used and thrown around too much, but doesn't make you feel comfortable. Hilariously cringy, it's been described. One of the worst parts about this, the choose your fighter trend, was popular on TikTok like 3 years ago. A comment from a viewer. The Democrats will not work with the conservatives because they want this country to go in the complete opposite direction. They seem to hate our republic. Thank you very much. All right, we're caught up on comments. We've got the state senator, Tom O'Mara. One last thing, if you recall the name, Representative Sidney Klingler-Dove. She was one that bolted rudely from the president's speech to Congress. She was giving an interview, and I'm going to read this quote, and I'm going to read it twice, but this was the quote she gave during an interview. Representative Sidney Kamlinger-Dove. Quote, "We are going to continue to speak lies to Trump's truth." Again, if we could, Representative Sidney Kamlinger-Dove, Democrat. "We are going to continue to speak lies to Trump's truth." On that note, we've got Senator Tom O'Mara. As I said, it was pre-recorded. Some of the corrections officer information is still fluid. It was fluid then, but we didn't want to pass up a great opportunity to have a nice conversation with the senator. A lot to learn there. So in full disclosure, it is pre-recorded. We make that clear during the interview, but a lot has changed as Docs has bypassed the union and offered terms directly to the striking corrections officers to have them come back to work today. The union is opposed to this. We're trying to get word on what is happening on the ground. If you know anything, let me know. Keep those comments coming in. Keep those waves coming in. We'll bring them up after we talk with Tom O'Mara. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV. Big Fox. Stay with us.
Are you or someone you love at risk of falling in the home? Did you know 80% of home falls happen in the bathroom? If you are still stepping over a tub to take a shower, please call Bath Planet for a free design service. Our certified design team will take all the measurements and work with you to design a bathroom that never has to sacrifice style for safety. Go with the company that people trust. Bath Planet, 2 locations serving the entirety of the Twin Tiers. Call today.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about weed. Thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC or visit our website at WYDCTV.com. Elmira, Horseheads, Hornell, Bath, Watkins Glen. Big Fox 10 p.m. News, the first primetime local news in the Twin Tiers. Catch news from your area, weather forecasts, and local events. And visit our website at WYDCTV.com anytime to stay up to date on weather, news articles, and local events. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We're broadcasting from the Hesselson studio, and joining me in the studio this morning, Senator Tom O'Mara. Tom, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Frank. It's great to be with you.
Well, I really do appreciate you being on the show because there's so much going on. I'm surprised you found the time. I don't even know where to begin, but I've got to say, and we've heard from so many viewers, you did such a great job at the Albany rally for the COs.
Yeah, well, see, this is an untenable situation that's been brewing for years. Something that I've been outspoken on for years. It's really, this particular is because really the HALT Act and the prisons, but this all is a culmination of the beginning with the defund the police movements, with one-party control in Albany that followed the 2018 elections when we Republicans lost the Senate majority in Albany, and the very next year it came out with bail reform, no bail, discovery, all these other things that have gone on. And then 2 years after that was the HALT Act that got put into place, and we've just had a complete lack of discipline within our prisons, behind the walls. And these men and women are working, as I said at the rally this week, probably the dirtiest, nastiest, and most dangerous jobs in law enforcement. They're unarmed, and they're dealing with the worst of the worst inmates that are not subject to discipline these days. So there is nothing holding them back from the assaults. The increase in assaults in the last couple years since HALT was implemented, it's nearly 100% increase of inmate-on-inmate assaults, and about a 60% increase of inmate-on-staff assaults. So it's not safe for the other inmates in there with these dangerous ones that are out of control, and it's certainly not safe for the officers. We've seen too many very significant injuries on the line of duty works, but I really feel for these men and women in this condition. It's an untenable situation. The Taylor Act complicates it a lot because the union leadership is not engaged. So just communicating with picket lines over 40-some prison facilities around the state and trying to get a unified position or message on something has been very difficult for these guys. And the governor's playing hardball. Department of Corrections is playing hardball. So some really harsh stuff has been done. Not just the firings and the dropping of health care coverage, but I think the most untenable thing I saw was this week when they came out and said, yeah, your health care is terminated. And I get it. The Taylor Act is tough. Don't get me wrong. It's tough. But to come out and say, we're canceling your health insurance and we're going to deny you COBRA. You can't even go and pay for the continuation of your benefits is outrageous.
And I know we had the sheriff, Jim Allard from Steuben County, and he talked about it being an act of desperation. And it's true, when they started protesting, it's probably the coldest week that we've had all year. When's the last time you saw a burning barrel, by the way? Going full bore?
I've stood by a few over the last couple of weeks now with these guys, and they had a great showing in Albany. And that was a little warmer the day in Albany than the days I was on the picket line in Elmira, but it is not a strike of convenience for them by any means. This is desperation for sure. This is because their complaints, and frankly, my advocacy and my Republican colleagues' advocacy on this for 3 years now, it's just fallen on deaf ears with the administration, and they felt they had no choice because of the dangerous working conditions behind the walls, and they are dangerous.
And that's why I've been so proud, and I've mentioned it on the show before, proud to have you on, Phil Palmisano, Chris Friend, because people watching the show actually knew what the HALT Act is before the news broke.
Yeah.
Because we've talked about you specifically, and Phil talked about it for so long.
Look, we warned about it before they passed it.
Yeah, that's right.
And
same with bail reform.
Gonna come. Same with bail reform. Same with discovery reform. Now, on discovery reform, it's somewhere between 25 and 30% of all criminal cases are being dismissed on technicalities. Nothing to do with the merits of the case, because some piece of discovery, no matter how irrelevant it was, these cases are being dismissed. Where's justice for the crime victims in these cases? They're an afterthought. It's all thought in doing everything for the criminal in this state, and it has been for 6 years of one-party control.
And it's the same with bail reform. When you think of how many victims didn't need to be victims because of this law.
Yeah.
Everybody's life has been touched by bail reform in one way or another.
The repeat offenses of somebody that would not have been out there, and it's led to a degradation of society as a whole, major frustration of the general law-abiding citizenry, seeing what's going on. It's inexplicable.
Right. And to go back to the HALT Act, I know obviously that's the main argument in the strike, but I can't believe it's even legal with the overtime they are being forced to take.
Well, I posted up on my social media last week one of the final budget hearings, which we'll get to the budget in a minute, I think, when we're talking about. We went through a month of budget hearings, different topics every day, but Department of Labor was second to last day of budget hearings. So the Commissioner of Labor is on there with the governor's head of employee relations on the same panel, and we're like, how would this be acceptable in any other business? You'd be in there all over them, and yet you're looking the other way. And they kept raising, well, it's a docs issue. It's a docs issue. We're like, you any other corporation or business entity, you would have been jumping down their throat, requiring mandatory 2 overtime shifts a week.
Right.
And that's the best case scenario.
Right.
These guys were getting stuck 24 plus hours, 36 hours, and multiple times during a pay period. Never getting home to see their family, never know when they're going to get home. It's 2 weeks ago we had a big group of spouses and some kids that came up to Albany to advocate on this strike issue, just how bad it was, and it was very effective. It's some moving stories just on how detrimental this has been to their family life.
There's been so many powerful signs that I've seen, but I think the most powerful one was that the prisoners get to see their families more than we do.
Yeah,
it's true.
And that's a fact, and they know when they're going to get to see their families.
Well, that's true.
And the CEO's families don't, because you didn't know when. How many shifts you were going to get stuck in a row. Look, this has been festering for a long time. The staffing shortage has been festering for a long time. They're really asking for reasonable accommodations on the HALT Act, so that when the staffing isn't there, they don't have to go through it. Because I've been in the facilities. I've been in 5 Points. I've been in Elmira under the HALT Act to provide the programming that's required for the most assaultive and most dangerous inmates in there. They've got to move these inmates individually, 3 officers on 1 inmate, to get them from their cell to programming, which is a class or whatever it might be. They have to shackle them to the desk so they can't reach another inmate or a staff person. And when there's not staff around to do that, I mean, they get better accommodations and treatment and opportunities for tablets. And they can make phone calls to their families on these tablets. They get more time with that when they're in this segregation than they do when they're not. So there's a benefit to being in that, but it's an untenable situation.
Hasn't it been amazing, the outpouring from the community? Those guys are eating good out in the cold.
Yeah, those guys. It was great. We were able to send a whole bunch of pizzas over one day to Elmira. We did with something Palmisano and something McGallahan up at 5 Points, barbecue and hot dogs one day for them up there. So it's been great to be able to show that support for these guys. They deserve it. and this is not going to end well.
No.
It's not going to end well for the officers. It's not going to end well for the governor, for the state, for Department of Corrections. It's a terrible situation. Something really needs to be done here to provide safe working conditions. That's what brought this on, and that's what's got to come of it. But the hardball that the state is playing right now is very disconcerting to see. Yeah, it's a very serious situation, and it is. And we got to get these men and women back to work. But there needs, something's got to give here.
Think about the optics too with Governor Hochul and how she's handled the corrections officers, saying just last week she didn't even know what their issues were, which I thought was very disrespectful from what was happening. But then we see the optics of her having a roundtable with federal workers that were laid off from DOGE. To me, that you couldn't have worse optics when it comes to the actual residents of New York State.
I agree completely with you, Frank. It's frustrating to see that kind of double standard, but as I mentioned earlier, the Taylor Law does complicate things for sure. But there should be more interest on the administration's part in really trying to resolve these issues than just trying to strong arm what is clearly a movement based on a need for safe working conditions. I can't tell you how many bills have passed the legislature in the past 5 years regarding workplace safety. Every year.
I know.
Probably a half a dozen of them.
I know.
And look, for the governor to say, I don't know,
what the issues are.
Well, they've been hearing from me and from my Republican colleagues for 3 straight years on what the issues are. Now, I mean, she retracted a little bit and say, well, I don't know exactly what it's going to take to get them to come back in, which maybe that you thread the needle there, but I could tell you a couple things that I think could very easily be done and satisfy them to come back in. As we're taping this, there's votes being taken at facilities across the state, but it's very disorganized. Whether that's going to be the end of the day today or tomorrow or the next day, I don't know. I'm just hopeful for a resolution. That these guys get their jobs and their health insurance back. Their families need it. And we get some improvement to the working conditions there.
And there's been so much coverage of this, and we're going to talk about the budget and some other issues, but time and time again we have viewers that write in and say, how can we impeach Governor Hochul? But I think this all boils back to what you were saying earlier. This is what happens when there's one party rule and votes matter.
It's one party rule. We are, unfortunately, are in a state that's more than 2-to-1 Democrat. Right now in the state, just in voter registrations, I think the non-party affiliated so-called blank voters outnumber the Republican Party in the state. So that's probably, just in the legislature alone, we're outnumbered 2-to-1 in both houses of the legislature. There's no actions on impeachment when that's the situation, and there's no real criminal activity being alleged here. It's just frustration.
That's all this is, frustration.
with the agenda and the lack of attention to things like the HALT Act and this. But it was a little different under Andrew Cuomo because Andrew Cuomo had a bunch of allegations against him on things, and they ultimately voluntarily stepped down. But even then, I don't think impeachment was moving forward at that point.
I don't either. You mean Mayor Cuomo? I'm just kidding. You said the word frustration, and you mentioned how lopsided it is in Albany. Do you get frustrated?
Every day.
Yep, I would assume so.
Every day, Frank. We're fighting the fight.
You are.
As I say, we're on the right side of the issue. Certainly for the way the residents of the Southern Tier and the Finger Lakes think. But what concerns me is that we have legislators in the Senate and in the Assembly that get reelected time after time that are in support of these issues that have been passed and created these problems that we have, these pro-criminal policies, yet they keep getting reelected overwhelmingly. So that tells me a lot about the constituency that they're representing, and that's very concerning that that's more than 2-to-1 the thinking of the state. We've got a lot of concerns.
Well, I know when they were talking about involuntary commitment, and Governor Hochul looked like she was going to maybe support it, and Carl Hastie basically said, it's not going to happen. There's that much power from the far left in Albany that even Governor Hochul obviously is running scared of the far left. It's frustrating.
And you know, one thing, let me give Governor Hochul some credit here. In the past couple years, and even in this year's budget, she has put more resources towards mental health.
Yeah.
And this is like a next step to do the involuntary commitment, because mental health is a huge issue with the homelessness that we have, and the mental health combined with the addictions and the dual diagnosis. There needs to be a stronger mechanism to get these people, these individuals, the treatment that they need at a time when they can't comprehend and to know that they need it for themselves.
I agree. And you mentioned the budget. Let's talk about Hochul's budget. $250 billion. Seems like a lot.
Seems like a lot. It is a lot. It is a lot. There's the spending. You know, I hate to go back to the one-party control again, but the spending since we lost the election in 2008, they set up one-party control. The budget that was passed in 2019. So since 2018, spending has gone up over 70% in New York State. It's unsustainable. It's just run rampant, and come up with a $252 billion budget. $18 billion more than last year's budget, and that's before the legislative majorities get their hands on it, which we're going to see next week. The Senate and the Assembly are going to come out with their one-house budgets, we call them, that will be their budget resolution in response to the executive budget. As I said, we just went through the month of budget hearings, listened to all this for a month. The majorities will formulate what their response to the governor's budget is. We will then formulate our responses in the minority on that. We'll debate the one-house budget some point next week, and then we'll move forward towards the next couple of weeks of trying to resolve and get a three-way budget between the Assembly, the Senate, and the Executive by the deadline of April 1st. But regardless of what the outcome is, the spending is out of control.
Yeah, it's not sustainable. Yeah. I mean, I don't even, like, and you mentioned, and there is some very good things in there for mental health, but there better be a couple good things in there with a quarter of $1 trillion.
Trust me, there's a lot of good things in there.
For that kind of money.
You know, there's education funding. Well, you look at one of the ones we just had a big rally on this week that Phil Palmisano and I have been leaders on for years is the local roads funding, CHIPS funding, zero increase to that local roads program in this year's budget. It's been flat for 2 years prior to this now. Last year, the governor actually cut it in her initial budget. We were able to restore it, but just to flat. We're asking for another $250 million. On the state road side of the equation here, the governor in her executive budget has put an additional $800 million in just for inflationary increases because of the costs of this type of construction. Well, our local roads inflation has been just the same for that type of work. So we had a great rally. We had 700 and some highway superintendents from around
orange
the state.
Shirts,
all wearing their orange shirts. It's a great day. It's one of my favorite days in Albany throughout the year. And Phil and I have been very successful on this over the years and increasing funding. We have had some good increases. The last couple of years have been more frustrating, and certainly we haven't had as much success since it's been one party control, but we're still pushing. These guys need it, and this has been a bad winter, and we're going to see it. We haven't seen the worst of it yet, because when the thawing starts to happen and we go back and forth here for the next month, these potholes are really going to emerge a lot worse than they already are.
And at the press conference that you held recently on this exact issue, I believe it was you who said, and I think it's such a great point, you alluded to it there, but when you get a 0% increase with the inflation, it's a loss. We're losing money.
Yeah.
I mean, how do we maintain? They must be so frustrated when you meet with them in Albany.
They're frustrated, and these local departments do such a great job with as little as they get.
Yes.
And a high percentage of our more rural towns and villages, that's all they have for their local road budget is the money they get through CHIPS.
Right.
They don't get anything else. So if they don't get that, so if it stays flat with inflation, they're able to do less and less every year. It means we just fall farther and farther behind on the condition of our roads.
And I know you've said it, and so many others, you start to point to the wastes of money in the budget that could go to this. We talk about the Hollywood tax credit. The one that sticks in my mind, and I don't understand it, maybe you can explain it, that the governor is proposing, I think it's $13.5 million to ban cell phones in schools. How's that not free?
Yeah.
To ban cell phone. Why do you need 13.5?
And we're hearing from a lot of superintendents and even teachers. Why can't we just get one of those shoe racks you have in your closet at home? Because we've seen them, and some classrooms are using those. There has been an ability of teachers and administrators in our local schools to have cell phone policies over the years. There is some pushback from parents who are wanting access, and there are some local issues on how far you want to go with that, when you want to lock them up all day long or just during the class period. Or whatever. I think there should be some local control over that. I do think cell phones are an issue in school. Don't get me wrong, that is a problem. It's a problem with it's just being a distraction, but also a lot of the bullying stuff that goes on that way too, unfortunately. So it's just the nature of social media, but it's extremely distracting, and trying to get kids of a variety of ages to pay attention is hard enough without that. But let's put some of these shoe racks up and do that. But 13 million, no, I think it's better off having 13 million spent somewhere else. But on the inflationary side of things, the bulk of our school districts are only getting a flat 3% increase. That's not keeping up with inflation in our schools. So that's a problem there for a lot of our rural schools. And that, remember, we had the big fight last year on Save Harmless and the loss of student population. But you know what? If you got 32 kids in the class or 28 kids in the class, you still got to heat that classroom.
Exactly.
So it's not just like a straight dollar per kid reduction. And there's inflationary concerns that happens, and we have a lot of low wealth issues in our district. Of course. And not unique to us or anywhere in the state, but there's a lot of mental health issues and special needs going on through our schools too that add a lot of intense cost from year to year fluctuations.
Well, let's tie that in then, since we're talking about schools. How is the EV bus mandate ever going to come to fruition? The grid's not there. The cost seems insurmountable when we look at our school budgets that are already so high. Is there any chance, because I heard yesterday, don't quote me, it might have been on the Hill, but that some Democrats are actually signing on to maybe slowing down on this?
Yeah, well, we've been calling for pumping the brakes. We've been calling it slam on the brakes.
Yeah, exactly.
This is just a wrong-headed idea. We talk about unfunded mandates in Albany. Yeah. This will be the biggest unfunded mandate to hit our local schools ever.
Yes.
And there's very limited funding that the state has offered, a pittance really towards what the total cost will be. Yeah. But you mentioned the grid. The grid isn't up to the task of providing the power to the bus garages that it needs. I mean, we're hearing from school districts it's going to be $10+ million. They're being told by NYSEG just to run the necessary transmission line to the bus garage. That's not the charging infrastructure. That's not the new buses. And that's going to be put on the local property taxpayers. Yeah.
What happens if they turn it down? Because that's still supposed to be up to us.
We can't get a straight answer on that. We've asked that over and over for several years now. We're seeing some chinks in the program for not just electric school buses, but the whole CLCPA climate electrification issues that are just unrealistic. And in utopia, it's great. Yeah, we have zero emissions, and we have all the power we need.
No one's in prison.
We don't live in utopia. And that reality is starting to hit home on these deadlines because there is no plan. There's been no cost-benefit analysis. No. All they did is said 2030 will be here, 2040 will be here, and with no way to get there. Yeah. You don't just get to zero.
No.
And they're counting on technologies to get us there that don't exist yet.
Aren't there?
Yeah.
And I know Phil's talked about it a lot as well, that when you look at the cost overall, and obviously we're in a rural district, but in some scenarios in the rural area, what are you going to need? 2 buses for 1 bus route?
That's what we're hearing from superintendents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And does that mean the end of away games?
Yeah. I mean, what do they do? Field trips, away games? Or are you going to be, because at the end of this, and they got to start buying the buses in 27.
Yeah.
By 35, they have to have only electric buses. Yeah. So not even no provision to keep a few diesel buses on so you can make that long haul.
Right.
It makes no sense in a lot of the districts that I represent with the larger geographic territories. And why are we making school districts do this faster than municipalities, than urban transit systems? Why where that congestion is really where the priority should be. because we can get our emissions. We have 0.4% of emissions globally in New York State.
Yeah.
We can get to zero. We can't get to zero, but if we could get to zero, we would have zero impact on the supposed climate issues that we're dealing with because of the greenhouse gases emissions. They're going to have no effect on that. So really, we're waiting to see somebody to explain to us what's the benefit really going to be to New Yorkers by going through all this expense. We're seeing it in the cost of utilities, but we are seeing some chinks in the program. The governor even said recently that the EV bus mandate is aspirational.
Nice to know
It's
now.
not actually coming out and saying we're actually going to put it off and be realistic here, but it's an acknowledgement that it's kind of pie in the sky. And it's nice thing to do. Lower emissions, absolutely, but we should be focusing on the emissions in areas where it's actually going to make an impact. We're not going to change climate globally. We're not going to change it here, but no matter what we do in New York. By lowering emissions, you might change some of the factors that cause asthma in certain communities.
Sure.
But those are urban communities where there's a concentration of this, and that's where we should be focusing initially.
Right.
And then as time goes on, look, this stuff will get better, it'll get more effective, it'll get more affordable. But to do it in 2 years,
2 years.
It's
and if you look at the goal 2035, people don't realize sometimes how quickly, it's a blink of an eye, how 10 years can go by.
It's amazing.
I hope I don't have to get a new
goes.
car in 10 years.
Yeah,
Right?
I know.
Not going to probably happen. But it's policies like this, and I mentioned earlier the viewers that talk about impeachment, but it's all this combined that has created this mass exodus. Because every day it seems like, and you know it, you hear it every day, we'll have someone on this program saying, hey, thanks for watching, thanks for letting me watch, but I'm moving. I can't afford it anymore.
No, I get it in my office all the time,
Yeah, sure.
the hundreds of emails that we get, the frustration level of people. Affordability is certainly a big aspect of that, but opportunity or lack thereof is another aspect of that, which is driven by the unaffordable business climate that we have in New York State, but it's also just a loss of freedom aspect that people more like us, let me just put it that way, in areas that I represent, are strong believers in freedom and liberty.
That's for sure.
The parties in control in New York State, apparently not so much. But just issues like the Second Amendment, but other issues of liberty and freedom is causing people to leave the state.
And you mentioned business climate. Think of that with the Climate Change Super Fund. You have all these businesses that followed the red tape and all the bureaucracy and did everything right, and then 10 years later they're coming back and saying you owe us billions of dollars. Why would any business come here?
Billions of dollars for providing fossil fuels that we couldn't live without.
Exactly.
How would we heat our homes? How would we drive our cars? How would commerce operate with no transportation? This is not going to hold up. It's going to be in court for decades. But there's another prong to this, cap and invest, that's out there that the legislature passed as well a couple years ago. The governor kind of put the brakes on that earlier this year because the different agencies were supposed to have come up with proposed rules and regulations by this January, just a month ago. And they didn't. The governor came out in January and said, oh, I want you to have those in by next January, which was a signal like, oh, this thing's off for a year. Yeah, well, and then the rule and regulation process takes a year. You know what that gets you past? November of 26, the next governor's election. Before any of these costs, because they're going to add costs across the board to any business that emits from fossil fuels. All their costs are going to go up, and we're all going to be footing the bill for that.
We pay it, and I know you've had to deal with this in your office, and I get complaints every day on this program about the people's energy bills.
People's energy bills. The situation with NYSEG right now is really out of control. We're getting inundated. In my office, we had a press conference on this in Albany just last week. I've spoken directly to NYSEG. I've spoken to the Public Service Commission. We're asking for answers. Everybody's pointing the finger. It's this, it's that, it's the other thing. None of them, all the excuses are coming up with them. None of them combined add up to these increases that people are seeing in their bills of 200, 300, 400% with no change in their utility usage. I mean, we've got people whose utility bills have gone through the roof when they heat with fuel oil or with wood pellets. So they're turning their lights on and off the same as they always have, and all of a sudden their bills have tripled. It doesn't make sense. We're not getting straight answers, and we're fighting to get to the answers we need. But let me tell you, it's frustrating as people are panicking because they're getting these huge bills.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about life-changing money for some people.
Absolutely.
When you have a budget, especially kind of our elderly population that live on a limited income, that can really make or break your year.
If you're used to a $150 to $250 bill a month on your utility, you got that baked into your budget, and a $1,500, $2,500 bill shows up, you panic. And it's coming through with the calls to my office, my staff trying to help everybody out, trying to get them answers from NYSEG, and at least get some hold off on this, because people can't pay these bills.
They can't afford
them. They can't pay them. But factor on this that nobody's really, at least the powers that be, are admitting to, is, and it's not all driven by the CLCPA and the climate electrification initiatives now, but that's a portion of it, and it's just the tip of the iceberg. It's going to be far worse coming forward. You know, there was a 32% roughly increase in NYSEG delivery charges that went in a year and a half ago, which is just finished being phased in now. But now, I hate to tell your viewers this, but this month is coming another fee on your bill of $10 a month for the securitization of winter storm and ice storm events that happened in past years that the Public Service Commission had not allowed the utility companies to recoup. Those costs of the utilities have been sitting on them, holding them, and it's been affecting their borrowing costs. And they finally got authority to securitize that, to basically bond it and pay it over a long period of time. But the way they pay for that is the Public Service Commission approves a rate that they add on. One more surcharge on the bill, just to add insult to injury. So it's a very difficult situation, and nobody's looking, at least that is in charge here in this state, is looking at the real aspects of affordability of this whole CLCPA electrification initiative.
Senator Tom O'Meara has been our guest. Tom, I kept you kind of late. I'm so glad you gave us so much time this morning.
Well, glad to be with you. I don't get in here often enough.
No, come on in anytime. You know that. But I think our moral of the story today is this is what happens when it's one-party rule, right?
Yeah. No, it is. We're struggling with that. You know what? I love the fight. And I said with my colleague, we got a great team up there. We're all rowing in the same direction. Listen, we win every debate on the floor of the Senate.
That's right.
And my colleagues in the Assembly, and we lose every vote 2-1. I mean, so is that frustrating? Yes, it is. But we're on the right side of the issues, and we're just trying to get them to open their eyes and see it. And sooner or later, at least on this electrification stuff, it's going to come home to roost. And I just hope not too much damage is done before that's there, because there's a lot of hysteria, and we're seeing a lot of businesses leave the state because of that uncertainty. I
agree. Senator Tom O'Meara has been our guest. Thanks, Tom. We'll talk again soon.
All right, Frank.
All right. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
Anyone, anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his car.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC, or visit our website at WYDCTV.com. Elmira, Horseheads, Hornell, Bath, Watkins Glen. Big Fox 10 p.m. News, the first primetime local news in the Twin Tiers. Catch news from your area, weather forecasts, and local events. And visit our website at WYDCTV.com anytime to stay up to date on weather, news articles, and local events.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
From laminate and vinyl to tile and wood, Floor & Decor has more options for pros, homeowners, and anyone looking for the right look at the right price. Your next beautiful space is at Floor & Decor.
Anyone, anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his car.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
Big 10 p.m. News, the first primetime local news in the Twin Tiers. Catch news from your area, weather forecasts, and local events. Or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
Dante Brown, Big.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Thank you so much to Senator Tom O'Mara for being our guest this morning. As you can tell, we're running a little bit late, so let's get to viewer comments. We'll take our last break and wrap up today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Regarding climate change, first, unless the whole world goes so-called green, it would be almost impossible to make any significant progress. More importantly, however, is that, in my opinion, climate change is a natural phenomenon, given the fact that the Earth has gone through at least 5 ice ages. Therefore, the Earth has also gone through at least 5 warming periods. Thank you so much. Comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank, and good morning, Senator. Well, thank you very much. I agree spending is out of control. I also agree that money that has been allocated for high-speed internet at least 2 times that I'm aware of, but has still not connected some, Caton specifically, and yet we spent $6 billion for law-breaking illegals in New York City. Thank you for standing up, and this is for Senator O'Mara. Thank you for standing up for the corrections officers. My nephew had to surrender his badge and gun yesterday. I stand with him too, but I think that was them telling the senator that. Thank you for that comment. Mark writes in, we are going to speak lies to Trump's truth is an admission that Democrats do lie. So they are not lying about that. Thank you, Mark. And that is in reference to Representative Sidney Kamlinger Dove, who rudely bolted from the president's speech and then a few hours later said, and I quote, we are going to continue to speak lies to Trump's truth. Hey, I wanted to mention this before we take our break, and this I should have brought this up at the beginning of the hour. This was just brought to my attention, and it's quite amazing. That we haven't heard more coverage of this. And this is, and I got this on very good authority. Terrence C. Cole is with the DEA. You may not know that name, or if you are a Corning resident, you may. Trump picks Terry Cole to lead the DEA. And he vows to save lives in the new administration. This was back all the way on February 11th, but it was just brought to my attention that Mr. Terry Cole, or Terrence Cole, is a Corning native. Was born in Corning, even a East High graduate. He is now the head of the DEA, so congratulations. I'm hoping to get some more information on that, but it was brought to my attention yesterday. So Terry Cole, who is now leading the Drug Enforcement Administration in Trump's administration, a Corning resident. How cool is that? All right, let's take our last break. So get those last minute comments in so I can read them before the end of the program. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking.
Have you been unable to work for over a year due to a mental or physical disability?
Were you recently denied Social Security disability benefits? Great news. You may be eligible for money, back pay, relief.
If you've been pre-qualified and diagnosed with a recognized condition that prohibits you from working, our lawyers can file a claim to get your disability benefit.
Call us today and find out more.
Call now, 844-617-0440.
From laminate and vinyl to tile and wood, Floor & Decor has more options for pros, homeowners, and anyone looking for the right look at the right price. Your next beautiful space is at Floor & Decor.
I invite you to discover what makes our school community so special, including the fact that everything, top-notch education, housing, healthcare, food, clothing, technology, and much more is provided to our students at no cost to our families. This is thanks to the generosity of our founders, chocolate maker Milton S. Hershey and his wife, Catherine.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. How is the planning going in preparation? Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
The Big's website is here now, WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio on Market Street in Corning. As we had mentioned earlier, the DOCCS bypassed the unions and are offering terms directly now to the striking COs to have them return today. The union opposes this and the discussions that they've had. We have not heard from those on the ground. I have, but it's been kind of a mixed bag without any kind of hard information. So if we hear anything before the end of the program, we'll let you know. Otherwise, we'll be keeping a close eye on it. A couple of quick things as we wrap up. A comment from a viewer. So we fill a large yellow metal container with children and have them sitting on a massive battery known to burst into flames. What could go wrong? Yeah, there's so many problems with the EV bus mandate that we've been talking about extensively. We just did with Senator Tom O'Mara, and I've got exciting news. Assemblyman Phil Palmisano will be joining us on the 21st. So not next Friday, but the Friday after. It will be Fridays with Phil, and we'll be talking about the budget as well. Okay, breaking stories. Treasury's Scott Bessent says access to cheap goods is not the American dream in response to Trump's tariffs, and we know the tariffs have been postponed again now till April. Access to cheap goods is not the essence of the American dream. The American dream is rooted in the concept that any citizen can achieve prosperity, upward mobility, and economic security. For too long, the designers of multilateral trade deals have lost sight of this. Now, Lee Zeldin, former New York gubernatorial candidate and now head of the EPA, said that the Biden administration altered $20 billion in an EPA slush fund just days before Trump's inauguration. The recently discovered slush fund that was parked at Citibank was last altered on January the 13th. A week before Trump's inauguration, and quickly doled out to a handful of far-left climate nonprofits with little oversight from the EPA, according to Zeldin. Quote, "We have to ensure that there's accountability here, and we have to make sure the federal government establishes oversight. We can't afford as a country to have this money wasted. We should have zero tolerance for even a penny of waste and abuse." That is Lee Zeldin, and we had brought that story to you in the past. It's as the New York Post editorial board says that Biden's green pork for pals is an epic example of insider feeding. In his final days, the Biden administration handed out billions to freshly founded climate outfits in a scramble to pump taxpayer money to leftist activities. They have no respect for your money. We've seen that. We saw that actually during the campaign to Harris's donors and how much money they spent with her and how much she wasted, $1.5 billion, I think it was. And all the slimy details are coming to light thanks to Lee Zeldin. He brought up the $20 billion slush fund. Climate United Fund got nearly $7 billion handed over via check from Harris just 5 months after being incorporated in November of 2023. Justice Climate Fund, which pocketed $940 million, was set up in 2023 and is yet to submit a single tax filing to the IRS. Wow, the list goes on and on. And let's face it, accountability is for chumps. Cynical doesn't begin to describe this cash grab. In a bill labeled the Inflation Reduction Act, it allocated hundreds of billions in the name of fighting climate change, with this major chunk of the outlays going straight to connected cronies with zero effort to see that it did any good beyond enriching progressive Democrat allies. It may not be illegal, but it's still burning taxpayer dollars to pad your pals' pockets. As Zeldin told the New York Post, of the eight pass-through entities that receive funding from the pot of $20 billion in tax dollars, various recipients have shown very little qualification to handle a single dollar, let alone several billions of dollars. And think of the cost, you've got this kind of sweetheart deal set up. Think of what the head of these groups are making, the administration in these groups are making, getting paychecks from you, the taxpayer, without any type of oversight or accountability. Receiving $20 billion won't put a dent in the national debt, sadly, but Zeldin's effort to claw it back are meaningful just the same. The era of funneling public cash to shady nonprofits that pay lip service to the right causes must end. The right causes must end, at least if we ever want Americans to trust the government again. Now, we had mentioned Hunter Biden says his art sales have plunged. I wonder why that would be. Amazing art is amazing art, so I don't understand what the difference a president in office would make as to what is deemed art and worthy of investment. But according to him, it's plunged, and he also claims the wildfires burnt down his house and that he is broke in a legal filing. But then they did a little research at the New York Post and found that his $3 million house appears untouched while every neighboring home was burned to ash after he called it unlivable due to the wildfires. All right, that is it for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Do I have anything else I can? There is a good piece of the New York Post called Americans Are Cheering Trump's Passionate Patriotism and Teaching the World a Lesson, if you want to check that out for yourself. We're out of time. Thank you to Senator Tom O'Mara for being our guest this morning. We'll have updates on the corrections officer strike for you on Monday as they have DOCCS has bypassed the union, offering a deal directly to the striking COs to return today. The union opposes. We'll keep you updated on that on Monday and let you know what we know. Have a great weekend, everyone. Stay safe. We'll be back Monday morning starting at 6. I look forward to it already.